What do these two women have in common? They both set up their friends to get robbed and killed. Colton Shearer, an 18-year-old baseball star at Middleburg High School, was invited by his friend Alexandra Schreffler, 24, to a party at a friend's house. In actuality, the gang intended to rob him. When Shearer and his two friends arrived at the house, they were ambushed and robbed at gunpoint by Johnson, McNabb, and Coleman, who were waiting for them. A battle over Shearer's pickup truck resulted in his resistance and subsequent shooting. Shearer was brought to a local gas station after the gunshot, where he passed away. While one of his friends remained and reported the incident to the police, another was hospitalized after being shot in the leg. Later, Alexandra Schreffler told police that she used Facebook to target 18-year-old Colton Shearer since he was an easy target. Alexandra received a 15-year prison sentence for her involvement in the 2016 shooting death of Colton Shearer. Originally, she was charged with both murder and armed robbery. Alexandra Schreffler entered a guilty plea to the lower offense in exchange for testifying against 3 other co-defendants should their cases proceed to trial. Jordan Coleman, Torian Johnson, and Ozell McNabb Jr., the other accused, had previously entered guilty pleas to second-degree murder. Coleman received a 25-year prison term, Johnson received a 30-year sentence, and McNabb received a 26-year sentence.
Alexandra Schreffler, she was facing up to life in prison for her part in Colton Shearer's death. Today, a judge sentenced her to 15 years in prison. July of 2016, 18-year-old Colton Shearer was lured to a home before being attacked and killed. Investigators say Jordan Coleman told Alexandra Schreffler to find someone to rob. Schreffler suggested Colton Shearer was an easy target. When Shearer arrived, he was attacked by 3 men. Deputies later arrested Coleman and Schreffler along with Torian Johnson and Ozell McNabb Jr.
I hold you the most responsible for Coleman's death. Had it not been for your senseless actions of luring him there that night, there's no doubt in my mind that he would still be here with us today.
While an arrest warrant says Schreffler never got out of the home during the attack, in today's hearing, Shearer's mother says her son trusted Schreffler would never put him in danger.
You knew when you sent him that message that you would be putting him in a terrible situation. He trusted you.
Schreffler pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of armed robbery in exchange for cooperation in the cases against her 3 co-defendants. Schreffler was sentenced to 15 years in prison, and Shearer's mother says she faces a lifetime of grief.
I'm forever broken. I will never be the same person.
And while all 4 involved have officially been sentenced today, Colton Shearer's mother says she'll never have true justice for her son's death.
Shannon Miller reported to dispatchers that she discovered a man laying in a pool of blood while strolling through Muncie's Morningside Park. Shannon Miller was merely an innocent bystander who was in the wrong place at the wrong time while traveling to the gas station. Or so she claimed. However, Miller then began pressuring detectives to examine her ex-boyfriend more closely. She abruptly told the cops that she was positive he was involved in the man's demise. According to court records, Miller was correct. She allegedly attempted to set up her ex-lover by partnering with the man who was now lying in his own blood, but she was concealing more than she was revealing. Ronald David Wright Jr., 42, was later confirmed as the deceased. Wright was found to have died from his wounds after being stabbed close to his left armpit. Shannon Miller attempted to place the blame on her ex-boyfriend when police wanted to check her phone during a follow-up interrogation. Miller informed detectives that she was positive that the man's death was caused by her ex-boyfriend. She claimed to have seen her ex racing away from the scene where she discovered the body while they were getting high in an abandoned garage. Investigators discovered messages between Miller and her ex on her phone, including intentions to meet up. The ex informed Miller that he will soon get $400 in cash and that he had 20 grams of good. Miller was taken into custody by police after they discovered she knew much more about the man's death than she had previously admitted. In the end, Miller's ex-boyfriend spoke to investigators and gave his version of Wright's death. He admitted to authorities that he had agreed to meet Shannon Miller in the deserted garage outside the park so they could have sex and get high. Shortly after Shannon Miller got there, Ronald Wright showed up with what was supposedly a gun. He insisted that the ex-boyfriend give him 20 G of ice, which is code for meth. However, the individual informed Wright that he had no ice on him. That's not what she said, Wright supposedly said. The ex-boyfriend admitted to detectives that he realized Shannon Miller had set him up at this point. He allegedly told Miller that he had 20 grams of ice in order to entice her to the park, knowing that she would consent to see him if he did so. However, he never really used the substance. In the end, he admitted to Wright and Miller that he was frightened and threw the narcotics out by a tree. Wright allegedly had a revolver on the ex and told him to empty his backpack as Miller looked for the cocaine. Miller's ex-boyfriend then retaliated by taking a Bowie knife from his pack, stabbed Wright once, and fleeing. Throughout his questioning, the individual repeatedly informed authorities that he stabbed Wright out of fear for his life. He said that if they didn't discover the cocaine, Wright threatened to blow his brains out. When investigators looked through Wright's phone for texts exchanged with Miller, they found that Wright had factory reset it before the alleged heist. According to detectives, criminals frequently engage in this behavior just prior to committing a crime. Miller had previously been friends with Wright on Facebook, but she promptly unfriended him following the stabbing in an effort to conceal her involvement. Miller attempted to blame the man for Wright's death, but police did not arrest him after concluding that the stabbing was an act of self-defense. The Delaware County Jail is holding Shannon Miller without bond. Whether the individual who stabbed Wright faces charges will be decided by the Office of Delaware County Prosecutor.
Cass County, Fox 59 is also in Delaware County. A woman is charged with murder after a botched robbery attempt led to a deadly stabbing, this in Muncie.
Fox 59's Jesse Wells talked with the prosecutor today, who hopes the criminal charges this week sends a vital public safety message.
According to court records, the man who actually committed the deadly stabbing here at this park is not being charged with the crime because he acted in self-defense. Instead, the woman who arranged the deadly encounter is now accused of felony murder. Just after midnight at this abandoned garage 2 weeks ago, a Muncie man arranged to meet his ex-girlfriend to have sex and get high. That meeting next to Morningside Park led to Muncie's first homicide of the year when police say Ronald Wright Jr. interrupted the pair, claiming he had a gun and demanding drugs from the man. During that alleged robbery near the tree line along this creek, the man being robbed stabbed Wright one time in the armpit and then ran away while the would-be thief bled to death. According to this affidavit, Shannon Miller called 911 and at first pretended she'd discovered the dead body while walking through the park. But prosecutors believe Miller set up the meeting because she thought her ex had a large amount of meth that could be stolen with Wright's help.
When you're thinking about doing these things and somebody dies, there's a consequence for that.
While Miller did not commit the stabbing, she is being charged with felony murder and robbery here in Delaware County, even though she may not have intended for anyone to get hurt.
The only intent that's required to be proven is the intent to commit the violent felony, so that being robbery.
Police claim Miller tried to hide her connections to Wright, but insist text messages tied her to the failed drug-related robbery. The prosecutor hopes the death in this park includes a legal lesson everyone can learn from.
The biggest takeaway from a discussion of felony murder or people thinking about felony murder is that you really need to be careful, number one, who you're associating with, and number two, what you're doing. And people really need to be aware of that and stay away from these violent crimes and attempts to commit violent crimes.
Finally, Miller is due in court for an initial hearing early next month. In the meantime, she's being held without bond pending trial.